Let me explain the spoken finals. After test one, students are encouraged to schedule one-on-one spoken final practice. Each student is guaranteed one office hour period where you will take a spoken final, just like you're taking a real spoken final. So that's why we call it a rehearsal. If you do well in the rehearsal, then we can count the grade. If you are not satisfied with the grade you got, and then we will just take it only as a practice. Then you go back to continue learn and practice until you're ready to take a rehearsal after test two. Each student can take rehearsals after test one, test two, and test three. Each time, if you are satisfied with the results, we can count the result out of 10. So for spoken final questions, I just want to go over these 5 questions. First of all, is you read a statement of a quiz test or a homework question or any other statement and be able to point out, or we say identify any property, or say we call them quantity measurements. Specifically, I need you to answer what's the name, like for example, velocity equals to 40 meters per second, name, number, unit, and a lot of times we use a common symbol and definition if I ask you. There is not enough time to ask every one piece of the information, but you are expected to know them all, and any one of those can be asked. Number two is to state and explain what the physics law is, or physics principle. So you need to give the physics law statement and also the mathematical expression, which means a lot of times it's a equation. You need to tell us, for example, Newton's second law is sum of all forces equals to mass times acceleration. But if you say F equals to ma, that's an outdated version. That's a middle school version. We use the net force instead of just the force. So the statement needs to be correct. In case you wonder where to get the correct statement, one place that has them all accurately, concisely summarized is the summary part at the end of every chapter. So the best practice is to make sure you go over the equations and law and principle statements in the summary part of every chapter. Recognize the pattern. So this might be usually the most challenging part of the spoken final. Students usually look at the homework solution and say, or tell me, like, I don't understand after reading the solution. The reason is, as they put it, like, we don't know which formula to use. Of course, we don't use the word formula. However, we do need to recognize the pattern. If you need to know which equation or which function to apply or which physics law to apply, that is the crux of the matter for solving every problem in our case. It's really that you need to recognize the pattern, because every physics law or every physics principle, they are not applicable everywhere. They only apply for certain types of problems. For example, so equations of motion can be for one-dimensional motion along a straight line with a constant velocity, or equations of motions can be for one-dimensional motion along a straight line with constant acceleration. So for different patterns, we have totally different equations. So in order for you to know which equation to use, you need to know which type of problem that is, as we put it, which pattern it is. So you need to be able to recognize the pattern. And pattern recognition is useful besides beyond physics. In a lot of fields, for example, like in music, there's pattern recognition. In business, there's pattern recognition. It's more of a general problem-solving strategy. We just use it here in physics, and I really like to highlight this and emphasize. And this is really the core part of identifying which physics law to use. Number 4, this is a lot of times neglected. If you do not use these constants, you do not have enough information to solve the problem. However, these constants are rarely given in a statement or problem. So if we learn a constant, you need to be aware there is a constant. Whenever it's relevant, you need to pull it in and use this constant. So this is a necessary part of problem solving. And we have some examples here. You can take a look. And also the problem solving strategy. Okay, for lecture problems, we usually use plug and check. That's the most fundamental. And you're super good at this. I think you've done this 12 years probably in school and in college and across different courses. And in chapter 3, we learn projectile motion. We introduce this new problem solving strategy that is to divide a problem into smaller, manageable parts. So that's what we call it, many different names. So some students like to call it sliding, dividing, slicing a cake, slicing a pizza, or divide it into different parts. Some students call it divide and conquer. No matter what you call it, it's really divide the more complicated problem into smaller parts that we learn how to solve exactly. And there are other problem-solving strategies. As we move along, we'll introduce more problem-solving strategies. I really need to point out for lab questions, for every experiment, you're expected to understand how to measure the quantities or properties and with what lab equipment. So you need to know the exact name of the lab equipment. So for example, if you use an electronic scale, you need to know that's called the electronic scale and do not call it a balance. Balance is a word in physics usually reserved for the one with two arms. That's a real balance. A real balance, the reading will not change on an elevator. If the reading changes on the elevator, we don't call it a balance. If you notice also on the container of the equipment, the electronic scale we provided, it's called scale, not a balance. So after taking this class, we need to distinguish the two important types of equipments, balance and scale. All right, so in summary, the spoken final has 5 questions. This is to spot checking that the quizzes and tests that you submitted, you really understand them. So you need to be able to identify the quantities, identify the pattern. You need to be able to state the physics law that you actually applied in achieving the correct answer you submitted. And also you need to tell us which constant you used. Without using the constant, you probably won't be able to get the results you got. So by checking the constants, we know like you understand the problem solving process and the problem solving strategy. In this part, you're not asked to crunch numbers. In other words, you do not need a calculator. However, you do need to point out how did you plug in the different numbers. For example, the physics law has an equation with different symbols. You need to connect each symbol with a given unknown or hidden quantity, meaning the one with a number and a unit. Okay, so there's more example given explaining these in more details, but in summary, these are the 5 spoken final questions: property, law, pattern, constants, and problem-solving strategies. In case you have any question you're not totally familiar with this, that's normal. In the beginning of the class, a lot of students are not super familiar with them. Every week, we have the weekly discussion as an opportunity that you and other students all post to analyze the problems, that is to answer these 5 questions. So we have a weekly written practice. And also, each person has an opportunity to take a rehearsal before a real final. Actually, everybody can take 3 rehearsals. Each time, if you do extremely well in the rehearsal indicated you already understand that module, that rehearsal grade can also count directly towards the final for 10 points. So the final is really combinations of spoken rehearsals and spoken final. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Remember, asking is not a weakness, it's a strength. And also for the rest, I'll let you read it and the details. Asking is a strength, not weakness, and that's how you grow. Okay, so this is spoken final. And we're gonna start and it'll end on the last day of the semester. I just really want to emphasize that the end of the semester is the end of the semester and you need to finish this. And especially we started practicing from the very beginning of the semester. You have a whole semester to learn and practice and rehearse. And in the end, we do not have time to have makeups because after the spoken final, the instructor really have to focus on grading so that the entire class will receive their grades. And that would be the priority. The priority would not be to help somebody who did not have any chance to learn about the spoken final and need to retake it again. And for that matter, you need to do all the risk management. In case your electricity may go out, the bus may not run, or any reasons, please plan ahead, test out your Zoom ahead, test out your computer ahead of time, make sure your camera works. And in case any problem happens on the day, please email the instructor as early as possible during the day of the spoken final so we can make arrangements. And after the spoken final, we definitely gonna have to focus on grading so that the entire class receive their grade on time. And thank you for your understanding and your cooperation. And again, always ask any question if you have. And you will do great and you're going to grow a lot as a lot of students gave me feedback what they learned in the spoken final, which is happened to be a best practice, helps them understand and use in other courses too. So I hope you enjoy the rest of the semester.